Welcome to the Microgreens Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Krochmalnek. Together, we'll explore the art of turning tiny seeds into a thriving microgreens empire, sharing insights, coveted secrets, and strategic wisdom from building one of Canada's largest microgreens farms. Stay tuned for thought-provoking conversations with leading figures in the world of microgreens. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. On today's episode, we have Jacob Pinkston from Pinky's Micros in Nashville, Tennessee. On this episode, we'll dive into Jacob's very recent expansion from a 500 square foot space into a 3,000 square foot farm facility with capacity to grow up to 3,000 microgreen trays a week. And he did all this in just 2 years of operating his farm. We'll hear about Jacob's sales strategy with chefs and farmers markets and a very creative way he is repurposing leftover product. Jacob gives some great insights and wisdom into those starting and expanding a microgreens farm. This is a really great episode, so let's get right into it. Hey, Jacob, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me, Jonah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you today. This is going to be fun. I'd love to kind of hear how you first got interested in microgreens and how you kind of got down the path of starting your own farm, Pinky's Micros.
So, in the beginning, like everybody would say, is I started this for the reason of wanting to do something for myself, but I have that also culinary background. So I knew what microgreens were when I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Worked in the restaurant, saw them. They're so pretty, foo-foo, all the flowers and whatnot, and all the little herbs and stuff that you can do. But when me and my wife met, we had a kid, and then in 2021, she was born, and then a month later, I was like, I need to find something to do. But I was also out of the restaurant world at that time for like 3 years. I was out of it, but I also felt like I wanted to go back because I love the food industry. I love all the pretty plates, all the hard work that goes into a dish and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. So I was like, what can I do that's not here in Nashville? And I saw that microgreens during the pandemic. I was researching what can I do, and then I found microgreens were lagging in Nashville, and I took that upon myself to really push forward and try to provide to the local customers that you don't really see those in the grocery store. You see Sprouts and stuff like that, but not microgreens or a plethora of them, like variety of them. So that's what sparked an interest of like working for myself, also being able to provide for my little one and family, food that's grown right on a shelf, right in my other room or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So you worked in the restaurant industry for quite a few years
Oh,
prior.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then so you said you're not originally from Nashville. Are you from Tennessee or from a different state?
So I'm from Aurora, Kentucky, Paducah area. So 2.5 hours away from really Nashville,
Okay.
Tennessee. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
not
crazy
far
how
away.
some of those states are so close together. I've driven from where I am in Toronto all the way to Florida before, and you
Oh,
pass by
wow.
all the states, and sometimes, yeah, it's like 24 hours. It's far, but you pass by states, and like sometimes you're in a state for like an hour or two, and then other times like you're in a state for like 5-6 hours before you get out. And it's just interesting. Yeah, I totally forgot how close Kentucky is to Tennessee. So,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. So it sounds like you're more in the restaurant scene, but do you sell exclusively to those customers, or do you have other kind of customers that you sell to as well?
So yes, I have restaurants, and that's what's getting us through, like during the slow time and stuff like that. But when farmers market season comes, for like 6 months, May through like end of October, we really do that. We do like 5 or 6 farmers markets, trying to get our name out there and whatnot. And we have loyal customers. Like this year, we have more loyal customers that's ordering through our website than the previous 2 years, because we're going into our third year of having our store and whatnot. But I would say it's more restaurants that is with us, but also it's like probably at 30% of customers. Right now, it's like Christmas time and holidays. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
eat greens. Some people do, but I give them credit.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean with that. So the farmers markets, that's interesting that you're doing 5 or 6. So I'm guessing you're not doing them all on your own because that would be a lot of work. So you have staff that help with managing the farmers markets?
So last year I did all the farmers markets plus
Wow.
restaurants. It was just like there's no time because you go to the markets and you hope because you grow and hope to sell and whatnot. And
Yeah.
that's one thing. Like it's we'll see what happens in 2024. But it's really a difficult thing to really do is just grow, hope to sell, and then we throw away. But we're also going to implement new things in 2024, like a freeze dryer and some other
Mm,
kinds of things to preserve it, but also have
yeah.
the health benefits to it. But yeah, it's a lot. This year, 2023, I did hire somebody to help do farmers markets, and then realized that, when she went back to school and college and stuff like that, I was like, I want to keep you. Please stay.
Yeah.
'Cause it was eye opener doing that, and plus on top of that, we had like 6 more restaurants added on this year, so it was a lot of balancing and trying to keep up with production and whatnot. And yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, it's having said that, there are definitely challenges with expanding a microgreens business, including staffing. But it's much better to be in a position where you have too much sales than to not have enough sales. So I think that's you're in a good position in that aspect. But I was in the exact same boat that you were in, and I like kind of was in a position where I was like, I could start hiring now, but I know it's going to be a lot of work to train people. So
Yeah.
I delayed it for maybe a year longer than I should have, and that kind of caused, I wouldn't say problems, but just made it extra hard on me because I had to train staff while also managing the like insane amount of production that we were doing. I don't even know what it was. It was like, I don't know, it must have been like 400 or 500 trays at least a week, just managing it all on my own. Well, having said that, I had a lot of equipment, so it wasn't like I was
Yeah.
doing everything by hand, but still, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, I
So I
bet.
totally get where you're coming from, being in that position, and then finding a good staff, but then they got to go back to school, and you're like, no, don't leave.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from there.
Well, I do have my brother-in-law. He's been like the back man that does like the soiling of the trays and portion out the seeds and helping me
Oh, awesome.
packages some things like sorting out sunflower is really a pain in the butt. But because we don't wash them, we want extra life shelf on
Hmm.
for customers and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so we want that so we don't wash, so we pick all the seed holes, we look at the defects and stuff like that. So he's been a big help of helping doing all the back end too.
Oh, that's nice. That's great to have. Yeah, that must be a huge relief for you, because to do all of that plus sales plus like 5 markets, 6 markets, that's like, man, that's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, and then there's
Yeah.
some markets that like try to say, "Hey, can you do this market?" I'm like, "I'm already dedicated to another market. I'm sorry."
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some farms do really well at farmers markets where they'll have dedicated staff that's their job pretty much.
Hmm.
Because it sounds like you're doing like multiple jobs right now. It sounds
Oh
like you're doing
yeah.
like multiple full-time jobs. So I've seen that model work where like you hire seasonal staff, they work 4 or 5 days a week doing markets, and then it kind of alleviates your time as the owner to kind of do the other things that are needed. And it's kind of a fun job for people, like it's
Oh
like
yeah.
people that are really social. I think it's a great job for them because they just got to talk to people about something they're passionate about. And yeah, which I'm sure is why you love it too.
Oh yeah, I like
Yeah.
people have told me that they come to really talk to me, not to buy the products, but talk to me because I'm selling the brand and I'm like talking to them about this stuff, but also talking about, how they're doing, how I'm doing and whatnot, how's the brand, how's the business, all that kind of stuff. So it's
Hmm.
like a relationship with your customers face to
For
face.
sure. Yeah. And I think one thing that I'm becoming more and more aware of is how aware people are of like the passion that someone like yourself that's starting a business, it's like, it takes a lot of courage and guts to start a business, it's a difficult thing to do. So I feel like there's a lot of passion that drives people like yourself and myself as well. And people really want to engage with that. So I think there is like a value of having yourself at the farmer's market. But it's
Mhm.
just trying to find the balance between like, all the other stuff you got to do to
Oh yeah.
manage the business. Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say, I guess, on the restaurant side and the farmers market side, what the most popular products are for those two markets?
So I would say for like the customer base, like farmers markets and our online is just mostly like cilantro, herbs and stuff like that is very, very popular. So we've had issues where we run out in a week and we're growing like 25, 30 trays and we sold out like the third farmers market and it's like, oh, okay, that's great. That's wonderful. Broccoli is as well and sunflower as well. Pea shoots is an iffy. Some people buy them during the spring and then they don't want it
Hmm,
anymore.
interesting.
So it's weird. Yeah. Like I like pea shoots. I love them in stir fries and sandwiches and whatnot. For
Yeah,
the restaurants, it's mostly basil, or red amaranth. What else? Basil, red amaranth, and somewhat cilantro. But our specialty mix is our another one, or we call it our pinky special.
oh cool. Is it just like brassicas, or does it have herbs in it as well?
It doesn't have herbs in it because some people don't like
Yeah.
the cilantro taste or anything. So we keep it pretty mild. Like we put like a Swiss chard in there or a beet, and then we do like a brassica, like arugula, kale, broccoli, that kind of those popular ones. And then we add like purple radish for some color, some pop, some
Yeah.
spice kind of thing to it. So that one is a popular one in the restaurant.
Cool. Nice. I was just very curious because it's always interesting to hear the kind of geographic differences in what's popular. Like there's certain ones like broccoli that are just kind of across the board,
Hmm.
everyone like just on a retail side, or like consumer side. But it's really interesting that cilantro is that popular. And I was just thinking because I was on, I can't remember which podcast. I was on like another gardening podcast, and they were like kind of asking like, what is the benefit of growing microgreens like in a climate that is like as just a home consumer, a climate that is pretty warm that you could in theory grow greens outside in the winter. And I was saying like cilantro is one where in the hot Tennessee summer is pretty difficult to grow outside. Like
Yeah.
it's like even in our climate, and there's a couple months where it can be quite difficult. So I can imagine there's like a, not microgreens in general, just cilantro in general is hard to grow locally for a period of time in the heat. So I was just curious. I was like wondering like what's causing that to me. Like it's delicious. So I
Oh
understand
yeah.
why people want it. It's one of my favorite. It's hard to eat regular cilantro. Once
Hmm.
once you try it, I find. But having said that, it's very interesting that it's the most popular on the retail front because it's really for a lot of people it's like hit or miss. Some people love it and some people hate it.
Oh yeah. Every time I hear the same old like it's like scratching the record. Like, oh,
Yeah,
it tastes like soap. I have that gene and stuff like that. And I'm like, ah.
yeah,
I wish
yeah.
I could like try that out for a day, but not because I love it. It's good in Mexican food and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. It's kind of funny because there used to be this gum I ate as a kid. It was like Willy Wonka. It was like soap flavored gum, and I
What?
loved it. I don't think it actually. I've never actually eaten soap, so I don't know what real
Yeah.
soap tastes like. But it was like meant to taste like soap, and I thought it was really good. I remember I used to always buy it as a kid. It was like this purple gum. I don't know. Maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't really know, but
Huh.
it was soap flavored, and I thought it tasted like really good gum. So I was just wondering like what it would taste like to have cilantro taste like soap. But I guess I'll never know. But I remember I had
Right.
some distributor customers that were just like, "Get this away from here. We can't like smell this." But it was like, "We'll buy it from you, but we just can't have it near us because because we can't stand the smell." Some people just love it, and I'm one of those. Yeah, in tacos, there's almost nothing better than having fresh micro cilantro in a taco.
Oh yeah, like I know that one restaurant, they switched over to us because somebody put cilantro in a blend, and we were like, oh, well, we can provide basil because like Italian kind of restaurant, and they're like, we will buy basil from you constantly. I'm like, okay, I'll grow for you.
Yeah.
It's nice for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's some trends like basil that is quite common to be popular in restaurants. But I wonder if how much that is restaurant dependent because we always sold through distributors, so I never got the like
Mm.
this type of restaurant uses cilantro, this type of restaurant uses basil. Have you found like a certain type of cuisine that's more likely to use the basil microgreens versus like I don't know the mix that you sell?
I would say more Italian forward is like basil, and then like cilantro. A lot of people add it on certain dishes, but we haven't really had any like Mexican or Spanish like restaurants come on board with us. And I would say basil's for Italian, cilantro is for like maybe a health food store or not Italian, but Mexican kind of cuisine and whatnot. Everybody else is mostly just like, just give me whatever for avocado toast.
Yeah. I guess in certain scenarios, it like really makes a difference. And then in other scenarios, it could just be like a garnish that does the
Yeah.
flavor. As long as it has some sort of like aesthetic appeal and flavor,
Hmm.
then they'll be happy with it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what we do with our pinky special. We have that, and a lot of people just add that on top because of the color and stuff like
hmm
that. Like, okay, it
yeah,
works.
yeah, for sure. So let's start diving into production. I'd love to kind of hear it sounds like your week will be like different than maybe some other growers given it sounds like you're a hardworking man, so I'd love to hear like kind of what your average week looks like, obviously in the summer is going to be different than the winter, but maybe
Hmm.
going into January what an average week kind of looks like as an owner of Pinky's Micro.
So, with this coming year, I'm like hopefully expecting like more and more people, health, new me, new you kind of thing going on. So, right now we work every day. I've been doing that for going on to 3 years to just, establish a business. That's what's required of a small business kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
as of right now, it is Mondays. We harvest for some restaurants that want like deliveries on Monday and then deliveries on Fridays. So we do that. And then Tuesday, we go to like a market that they people buy online. It's an online market. It's called Market Wagon. So they go, we drop it off at this distribution kind of center, and then they go and deliver it. And then Wednesday, we go to a different part of Tennessee, like Murfreesboro and stuff like that, to deliver to a restaurant and this other online store. And then Thursday is pretty much our planting day for the following week and stuff like that. And then Friday is another delivery, but also getting prepared for our all year round farmers market on Saturday. And then we're getting orders in online and we're getting those prepared. Those are cut off at 10 p.m. on Friday. And then Saturday, we go to the farmers market and then just pretty much come back here, fulfill Sunday's orders, harvest and package and bag. And then Sunday morning, we're pretty much just out delivering for like 4 or 5 hours because Nashville is pretty big because we go everywhere because we want to expand this business and whatnot. So it's just 7 days a week.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. Yeah, I didn't. It's very impressive that you've got like 3 years without taking time off is very impressive. I was in the same boat where I literally couldn't. I used to
Yeah.
go and in the summers to get like the equivalent of taking time off. I would start at like 6 a.m., get all the work done in a few hours on like a weekend, and then go drive somewhere and go hike or something like that, just to like feel like I have a weekend. I think the more technology that's becoming available, like watering systems, for example, could allow
Yeah.
people to kind of not have to go to the farm on, let's say, a weekend, depending on like in your scenario, I think it's unavoidable given your deliveries and the farmers market on Saturday. But you could have like I don't know, let's say Thursday, if let's
Hmm.
your family member is helping, like could be your potential first day off. And I can tell you, once you have that, it's like it feels really nice, especially after doing it for so long, to start
Yeah.
having a little bit more time to yourself. It's almost at first it's almost a little overwhelming because you're like, what do I do with my time? But but you get used
Check
to it,
in
and
all
then
the time.
yeah, yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah, like you're definitely hustling hard, but it definitely pays off because people can see it, customers can see it, and your product quality, as I've seen online, you can really see how high quality the product is, and I think that will propel you forward in the next stage of your business. Um, so yeah, like in terms of disease and prevention in production, have you noticed much of, usually dampening off is a big one for microgreens farms. Um,
Yeah.
but do you, like in your grow space, have you noticed any sort of pressure from disease or pests?
So we just moved in beginning of December, and we're still trying to get this place settled and whatnot. But this new space has been great because it's more controlled environment. We have an HVAC now instead of a mini split unit, and then we have dehumidifiers. It's a bigger space. We might encounter more dampening off like we did in our old space, and we just had dehumidifiers pretty much. They weren't like the Quest or high end ones. Well, they still cost a pretty penny, but the Quest one is our list of things that we're going to get in the next year and whatnot. But that right now, everything's been dry. Everything's been watering. We water by hand. We're gonna implement automation, watering and stuff like that. But yeah, like pests and disease, we do encounter like fungus gnats and stuff like that. And that's just with the soil that we use is the Pro Mix Bell. And it's hard to get away from that. We put the sticky traps and stuff like that. And you can see that whole thing fill up.
Yeah.
Um, but we sanitize our with Zerotol and whatnot. We scrub everything, we clean everything in our 3 compartment sink, and have in the background of like scrub, rinse, sanitize, repeat,
Nice.
and whatnot.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, you got the right the right order, which took me too long to learn. But congratulations on expanding into a new space. I know it's a big step. It can be definitely overwhelming at times, like when you're moving stuff and you're trying to keep production going. And yeah, that's great that you're moving forward. So how big is the space? Like, do you have room to grow for a while in there?
Oh yeah, we have room to grow for a while. We can actually enclose some of these spaces and stuff like that to get more racks in here. We predicted if we do the racks that we have now and keep on doing that, we could grow about 2,500 to 3,000 trays a week.
Wow. Wow.
Where it's a 3,000 square foot space on the second floor, so you have to lug everything up.
Okay. Okay.
But we I've installed a crane so we can
Nice.
hoist everything up. But we also have a room that's closed off where we're going to start expanding into more varieties of flowers and more edible other types of plants and whatnot. So we got a lot of room to expand. We're just trying
Awesome.
to get all that staged and whatnot.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a big jump. And
From
but it's
500.
yeah, yeah, and also from the perspective of like it's a pain to move, so it's often better to like, I don't want to say overexpand because it is expensive, but like just from a lifestyle perspective, it's stressful to move everything and get everything going again. So like if you have a bigger space and you know that you have a plan to grow into it, it's much better than having to constantly like move to like an extra 250 square feet and move every year sort of thing. Are you using the five, like the standard baker's racks, 5 levels? Is that how you guys are growing now?
So we grow 6 levels. So we have our 18 by 48 inch racks, and then put our lights on there and then fans and whatnot. So we can grow about 23 or 24. Yeah, 24.
24.
Yeah, 24 rack or 24
Yeah.
trays.
Yeah.
Right now we're in production of like 300, 310 right now or so.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and since like we moved, we had to skip a week because it was just so stressful of
Yeah.
planting. So that threw us off, but also in a way it's like Christmas time, so it helps in a way.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, I was actually looking into how could someone either in their house or in a commercial facility continue to use the baker's racks. 'Cause I think there's a lot of value in using it because it's much more modular for
Hmm.
like in certain ways. It doesn't work as well necessarily for automated watering, but you can do it. Like there's a video on YouTube now of the tour of Boston Microgreens. They did it, so it's definitely doable to have the watering done with flood tables on those baker's racks. Um, but I was thinking like you don't get as much height. So yeah, you get 6 levels, which is great. But so they actually make the poles, like even Uline sells them. You can get 8, 9, I think even 10 feet
Oh wow.
of the poles. So you can, in theory, like pretty easily modify, like just take the shelves you have with the lights hooked up to them and just like buy the pieces you need and have them go up even higher. Now, like you have enough space now for a while, but just like as an example for people that are running out of space or um, just want to have like a more centralized production in a smaller area, you can go higher. You just have to use a ladder at that point. So there's a little
Mm,
bit like safety hazard slash a little bit extra work because each level higher upstairs you have to spend a little more time because you have to walk up it. You have to bring the hose if you're watering. You have to check them and all that stuff. So there's a little bit extra work, but for someone in a tight space, it's a great option that you can. It's like completely compatible with those baker's racks, and I wasn't sure if that was available. I was like, wow, that's great for people
you
that
said
aren't
U
ready to move.
line.
Uline has them. I think you can find them elsewhere. Uline's probably usually I find they're a little more expensive than other
Mm,
places, but I just did a quick search and I saw they had them on Uline. And I was like, okay, this is good to know for people if they do have higher ceilings, like because you can get the ones that that have are like I think 6 feet or 7 feet, the standard ones. So you can, in
okay.
theory, in a standard home, you can go up to 8 feet because that's usually what a ceiling is. So you can get an
Hmm.
extra couple levels in there and maybe get 8 instead of 6, which for a small space is you want to maximize as much as you can before
Oh
you have to
yeah.
move. Yeah. Just a tip for people that are curious about that. And then I was going to mention in terms of the fungus gnats, I've noticed that farms that grow edible flowers often run into that issue more commonly than if you're just growing microgreens. But if you do want it, if you did want to get rid of it, you can with a nematode that is pretty much, it'll just like eat the eggs of the fungus gnats, but you have to kind of do it once a week. You have to spray all the trays once a week with the nematodes. It's completely natural. There's no like pesticide.
So,
It's just like a biological control. But it can get a bit pricey, especially as you get more and more trays.
mm,
Um, but it's a lot harder to manage for sure when you have edible flowers. But the demand is just there's more and more demand for edible flowers. It seems like. Have you noticed that as well on your end?
oh yeah, like more and more restaurants, more of our fancier restaurants, always ask us, "Do you have edible flowers? Do you have this? Do you have that?" And I'm like, "Well, eventually we will. 2024 is coming, so we're
Yeah,
gonna expand that way." But when we just did microgreens last year, and then we expand into like violet flowers, and we tried to do the corn flowers. We're gonna do those again. We did those
interesting.
outside. They're called bachelor buttons and whatnot. But fungus gnats was an issue because of the edible flowers because they're sitting there for a while and
Yeah,
whatnot instead of a
yeah.
fast turnover rate. Yeah.
In your new space, do you have any like outdoor space you could utilize in the because most of the year you could grow outside, I think, in your climate,
Yeah.
flowers, but I don't know if that's viable.
Not here just because we're on the second floor and it's a
Yeah.
commercial property. So it's hard to do anything outside. So we have to contain everything inside and
Yeah,
whatnot.
that's a good point. Yeah. So what are your plans kind of look like for 2024 in terms of expansion? So obviously you just had a huge physical space expansion, but in terms of customers, do you have any like goals or planned increases in production that you're planning to achieve in the next year?
So, hoping that we'll be able to expand into the edible flowers, get more like bars, more like restaurants that have a microgreens person already, which is probably Cisco Creation Garden.
Yeah.
Um, and we're trying to put that in there, like our edible flowers and different varieties that, don't wither in a day. Where our viola flowers, some people have told us that they've had it for a month in their fridge, and I'm like, what? That's what?
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and like some chefs have told me that yeah, they buy from somebody and they only last like 3 to 5 days, where ours have been lasting a week or to a month, and I'm like surprised and shocked. But we're going to expand in that, get more bars, more restaurants, and then hopefully that will tag along into buying microgreens. They're a little bit faster crops and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then we're going to hopefully expand into like freeze drying and doing different kinds with the popular microgreens. We already do the freeze dry broccoli, but we want to
Oh,
expand
cool.
into the sunflowers and pea shoots and stuff like that, where they're shelf stable and last like, 20 years on the pantry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've always wanted to do it, but the way always thought of it is like it's really in a way a separate business. It's great. It's a great
Hmm.
strategy to minimize, like to utilize waste product from a farmer's market as an example, because
Hmm.
if the weather's bad, it's inevitable that less people are going to come. So I think that's a great strategy in that sense. Have you found it's been like a lot of labor or work to actually dry them and package them and that sort of thing?
In a way, not really. Just
Okay.
because we buy the freeze dryer that is like well known. I forgot the name of it. I don't have it here right now. It's at home, but I'm bringing it over here soon. But we have that one, and it's like 4 trays. With the what takes the most is the growing part. We grow broccoli for like a week and a half or so, and get bigger yield out of it, and then we'll freeze dry it. It'll take about like 12, 13 hours and whatnot. And then packaging is fairly simple. We don't grind it into a powder or anything. We keep it as
Oh,
is.
interesting.
A lot of people grind it into a powder, and it's like, well, people want that like look to it. Like we want it to look like dried herbs almost, whatnot.
Interesting.
So you can pinch it and just sprinkle it on eggs or like put it in a smoothie and whatnot. And yeah, yeah, it's
That
not
saves
it's
a
not that
saves a
hard.
step. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So how
it's
much like if you put in X amount of like what's the most you can put in one batch dried or fresh product, and then how much do you get out dried for one batch in the freeze
um
dryer you have?
so the freeze dryer we have is 4 shelves. We put on each shelf 8 ounces of fresh. So that's about 2 pounds there. And what we get out of it is about 8 to almost 9 cans, and they're 5 grams of dried product. So trying to convert that over to grams, it gives us about like almost like 40 grams
Hmm.
or so. So trying to figure that equation, it's like,
I think there's starting to be a bigger market than there used to be for that. Like I think AG1. This is one thing that I really like that people often think of like competition as a way of like making less demand for you because you're going to have more competition. But I've actually found the opposite where like as an example, if there's more microgreen growers in your area, more people will be aware of it and there'll be more demand for it. And then it's up to you to
mm,
fill the demand that's there. And it's the same thing. Like I feel like 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, green powders were like a real far out there, like hippie kind of thing. And now
yeah,
with AG1, that it's just advertised everywhere. Like people think of greens powder as like like a daily normal supplement that you take. And I think that's allowing for a subsegment of that market in microgreens being freeze dried that is expanding out. Because like I've heard a lot, like in the last year, I've heard a lot of people starting to freeze dry microgreens as a potential like add on to their business. I've
hmm
been a bit more hesitant because of the work involved, but it like I think from a demand perspective, it's it's definitely viable from a demand perspective, and then it just depends
hmm
on the numbers. So it's like really
hmm
educating the consumer that hey, this is only 5 grams, but this is the equivalent of X amount of fresh product, and this is like a lot of microgreens, like nutrient wise, because microgreens are more nutrient dense. That because that would be my initial like reaction as a consumer and be like, oh, it's only 5 grams. But then when you realize what the equivalent nutritional value is, it's like, wow, that's actually pretty substantial.
Yeah, what we tell people is like it's about 5 to 6 ounces worth of broccoli, or 4 to 5 ounces really of fresh broccoli that's been pushed in there and filled in the can because it's a small can, and it's about 14 servings depending on the usage, and it's like 1 to 2 teaspoons like a day or so, so you get about
Mm,
14 days worth out of it, and it's only a little bit, and you still get
yeah,
the max nutrients that you need. It's like 98% more vital nutrients, or that's contained in there, and not
yeah.
through a dehumidifier that like only 30% of it.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I've always heard of like freeze dried raspberries are amazing because they have like the texture. They have like a nice crunch to them. But yeah, like I know I used to actually when I first grew microgreens years ago, I used to dehydrate them, but it was so I remember it being so slow and then grinding it
Oh
up, and you're like, this is what I
yeah,
got. But it was pretty small.
yeah.
I don't know how much you can actually fit, how much I was able to fit in there, but it's just interesting how much it's changed, and how much more common freeze drying is. But that's cool that like it's a great way to utilize the leftover product from farmers markets,
Hmm.
and especially with the demand side that there's starting to be more demand for that. So that's cool that you're doing that. I think that market I think will also grow going
Oh
into
yeah.
the next year. Especially in January when everyone's doing their health kick.
Healthy
Uh,
greens, yes.
yeah, yeah. Um, so how many varieties of microgreen? I didn't ask this earlier. How many varieties of microgreens are you growing?
So right now we're up to 26, 28, just depends on some things, but we can grow 50 plus varieties. We've tested a lot of them. Like we are growing right now like curly watercress. So it's like that pepperiness, different kind of thing. We tried watercress by itself, but that one was a pain in the butt. But the curly one grows like a weed. It's like a
Yeah.
brassica almost, and it's pretty cool. But we keep on adding stuff on like sage. We added that for
Oh,
Thanksgiving and
cool.
whatnot, and that was pretty fast and easy too. It was fun. And then we do Chevrolet. We do like other types. So it's growing. It's just we're trying to not grow everything and then hope to sell. We're trying to like, hey, restaurants, this is what we can grow. This is what we have available. Is about 26 of these, but here's 50 plus varieties. If something's not on there, we'll look into it and grow it for you. Whatnot.
Awesome. Yeah. And do you do a grow to order model for restaurants, or do you like how does that kind of work?
So yeah, most restaurants are grow to order. There is some restaurants that are so used to the Cisco and Creation Garden kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I tell them that like, look, order whenever you want. I'll grow a tray for you and have it available every week. If not, then I can just sell it at a farmer's market or something like that.
Mm.
But if it becomes like, oh, you want 8 basils, you don't want that weekly, but then I haven't heard from you in 3 weeks, then it's annoying because I'm
Yeah.
wasting so much product.
Yeah,
Whatnot.
yeah, that's one of the more challenging parts of sometimes working with restaurants or with chefs directly is that like they they may not understand like the growing process. So there's a lot of chefs that really are delved deep into like gardening and farming and understand
Hmm.
and visit their farms, understand the complexities of growing, and that that you can't just make it appear overnight sort of thing. But then there's some that chefs that are just so focused on the culinary side that they may not understand that complexity in growing. So yeah, it's still worth it because there's so much demand, and there's probably so many great relationships you can build with chefs, especially for someone like you that came from that industry. I think it's like a perfect fit. Um, I kind of moved away from it faster because I knew that it was going to be more logistical work, and I was just trying to focus on production.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of sage, that's one I was going to ask. The next question was like like if there's any unique or exotic microgreens you've grown. So obviously most people know what sage tastes like, but I
Hmm.
actually haven't ever grown it as a microgreen. How long does it take to grow?
That it's almost like basil. So it's smaller like seeds, or it's bigger seeds like little big ones, but it's about like 5 to 6 grams, and then we we put it under weight for like a couple of days to start to see it, and then put it under a dome, put it under light, and then after it starts to shoot, and then you take the dome off and just keep it under light. So it took about 3 to almost 4 weeks.
Okay.
But some people want them a little bit bigger. So we grow a little bit
Yeah.
longer and whatnot. And then we just harvest the stem and we're like, here you go. You can pluck the things off. Because some chefs are like, well, this is supposed to be a microgreen. I'm like, well, like nasturtium and stuff like that. We
Yeah.
we keep
Yeah.
them on the stems just because so they can last a little bit longer because that's their lifeline almost.
Yeah, for sure. So how big does the sage get in that time frame? Like
Um,
it's got
it's it's
multiple leaves?
It's got multiple leaves, so it could be a micro, could not be a micro. It's borderline kind of thing,
Yeah.
because when it's growing, it's having the true leaf, and then some people are like thinking micro stage as like a little leaf almost, but it's like
Mhm.
to get that little leaf or a little bit bigger of a leaf, you have to let it grow to it makes two more leaves and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's like it's borderline micro and not micro. So
I
it,
wonder if that would be a crop that you can like re-harvest from the same tray because it's kind of like it's a perennial, but I don't know if that
mhm.
would actually work. I was just thinking that maybe that would be something that's worth to experiment to get the cost of production down. Again, I don't know if it would actually work. It's just an idea that I was thinking if you cut like if you let it grow a bit higher and then cut not those cotyledons off, just the true
Mhm.
leaves, and then have it regrow from there just because it's a slower crop, right? So it's
Right.
a little extra work in that sense.
Yeah. It's like the red panda sorrel we grow here. Those take a while to grow too and whatnot. So it's like we harvest the whole tray just because we grow like about 20 trays or so. And we keep like we grow every week like 6 to 10 depending and whatnot. And they take about like that some people want bigger leaves, but some people want smaller leaves. So it's like we choose which one is fit for the harvest and whatnot. But those, keep on growing back and growing back. And we're
Yeah,
trying to look into just keeping not as many trays growing so we can like harvest the little leaves that the chefs are wanting. But it's like maybe like the sage, yeah, just harvesting it and seeing like if it grows like pea shoots and stuff
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's you never know what the quality is going to be. Like when you regrow some things, the plant's obviously a bit stressed out, but it's definitely
Hmm.
worth an experiment because if you can save the time on those long crops and get more out of those trays, that would be a huge time saver and space saver for those that are limited on space. But now you have seemingly unlimited space for I think it'll be faster than you think. But 3,000 trays, 2,500, 3,000. That's a
It's a
pretty
lot.
substantial operation. Yeah, yeah. So I'm excited. Maybe we'll have you back on when you're go through like you get a bunch of more customers and the new set of lessons you learn. But I'd love to kind of get to that part of the podcast, which is like what kind of recommendations and challenges that you've had in starting this business and expanding it. Did you find any crops that required more time to perfect the growing recipe?
Yeah, early on, like cilantro, trying to get the seed holes off of it, and also basil was a little bit of a headache. It was just mostly I was planting at like 8 to 10 grams of seeds, and I was like, oh, this is a lot, and it was working, and but it wasn't getting that pretty true leaf kind of effect.
Yeah,
So I had to reduce it down, keep on trial and error trial. And then now we're at a pretty good standing of like we can grow it in like 2.5 to 3 weeks. I know, like I've heard from you, listening to the podcast and stuff like that, they like warmer temperatures and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense because you see it at Kroger or any other grocery store. They're not in the fridge; they're
yeah.
out in the opening and whatnot. So cilantro and basil was the ones that we have finally perfected. Seeds is a big factor on getting quality seeds, so that is like where our issue lies now is like trying to find the best seeds and whatnot and trying to have that good lot and germ rate and whatnot. So that's the only issue that we have. The growing
For sure.
process is fairly nice and easy.
Yeah, yeah. For us, for basil, we kind of what started out like it's where we kind of had our niche in our market, so that was a big focus. So that's why we ended up having such warm temperatures, and it was just kind of a side benefit that those warm temperatures for most crops helped quite a bit, also speed up growth. But I've realized as I'm doing testing in my home now, and it's maybe 72, 73 in here. It's
Hmm.
not 80, it's not as warm. But I have the lights closer, kind of like you, or I can I'm using a baker's rack where it's
Okay.
like maybe 9 to 10 inch spacing. I find I'm getting, because it kind of gives off a bit of heat, I'm getting similar results, in some cases even better results than at the farm, which is really interesting. So some crops may have actually had a little bit of a detriment from the heat, but I know for a crop like basil, like it definitely is helped by that increase in temperature for sure. And yeah, and it's when I talk to a lot of farms, and it takes longer. Like it's got to be the temperature. That's the only thing I can
Hmm.
really think of that it takes longer. With cilantro, with the hulls, was it just putting weight on for longer that fixed that problem?
Yeah, yeah. Wait longer and just making sure that the top layer had soil and whatnot, like covering them up and whatnot, and keeping it moist.
Yeah,
But yeah, what we do is just pretty much portion our seeds out, have our like half or almost like three-fourths of a tray, and then put the seeds on, put the soil on it, wet it down. And also the issue is this time not overwater it because you'll end up having rot,
yeah.
like spots and stuff like that. So, yeah, keeping the weight on it a little bit longer helps a lot to keep the seed holes off and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. Are you using the split seed, the monogerm seed, or using the whole
The
seed?
the split, yeah, the
Okay.
split.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I'm still trying to figure out now. Because like I didn't really care, to be honest, about the seed halls. Like chefs that we worked with through distributors didn't honestly really care. Some of them actually liked it because it had that really nice. Like we got really good lots of seed, and it was so floral. Like it was crazy how strong the smell was from the like it's a coriander seed, which is cilantro. But I've heard from some people that using a non-split seed makes it easier to get the hulls off. But I haven't tested it yet. I just like didn't really mind having the seed hulls, but I know there's a
Mhm.
lot of, I guess the chefs must be saying like, hey, we want it without the seed hulls, because it seems that most growers are trying to perfect that recipe for cilantro to get the hulls off.
Yeah, we still have like some that have seed holes, some don't. We had an issue where our split seeds didn't come in, so we had to quickly order what was available, and we had the whole seed. And it seemed like they're growing the same way, just keeping the weight on there a little bit longer. The one that hasn't been split um, actually grew a little bit slower, just a little bit slower.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, but the split one grew very quick, very well and whatnot. So that I go with the split seed.
Yeah, yeah, that's good to know that you did that testing. Because I think they'll save some people some time
Hmm.
in doing that. One thing that would be cool is if they were able to find a way to like get the seeds out of, because there's multiple seeds in a beet seed. No, I
Hmm.
didn't grow many beets because like I focused on amaranth because it seemed that there was more demand for that, even though it's really hard to grow to get
Yeah.
a good crop. It's just like it's a really tough one.
Oh,
But if they were able to split beet seeds, I think that would be great. I don't know how they would actually do it, but because like there's like
yeah.
4 or 5 seeds in each beet seed apparently.
Huh.
So like if you can get the seeds out, you can evenly disperse them better, just like
Yeah.
cilantro, right? Because you don't have two to attach. Because if you have the more you have together, close together, the more chance of mold can form. So
Hmm.
having them split would prevent that. Which is one of the issues I found with cilantro was the like just mold was more prevalent in the growth of cilantro than let's say like broccoli as an example.
You're right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The beets, so like we grew beets and we did really well with that, and then we got seed lots, and we still use the same like grams, like seed density and stuff like that, and then we find out that it grew a lot more in the tray and then died off because
Yeah.
we thought, oh, okay, well, it's a different lot, it's a different seed, it came from somewhere else actually. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, if they can find a way, that'll be nice, and
Yeah.
know what you're going to plant and how many you're going to plant.
Yeah. Because when I started, I don't believe that cilantro split seed was a thing, as far as I know.
Oh,
Yeah, so like, because when I started, I was using regular. Well, I didn't grow cilantro in the first few years. It was only several years later. But I remember, I don't think there was split seed when I first started growing it, and then it became a thing. And I was like, oh, interesting. I'll try that. And I was like, wow, this is definitely. It
it's
seemed
different.
better. But what I find is when you do things for so long, it's always good to re-experiment with things. That's one
Hmm.
thing that I learned that was really helpful for me to improve my production system. Was like there'd be something I try, and then I changed my soil, I changed my seed suppliers, I changed my lights, and then I'm like, oh, well, that thing didn't work then, so maybe it won't work now. And then I remember I was started thinking, okay, maybe I should try certain things again. As an example, I didn't grow sunflower for many years because I couldn't get the hulls to come off efficiently,
Oh
and
yeah.
then once I found a good lot of seed and then had stronger lights, I was really able to like reduce the amount of time it takes to it didn't make sense for our farm to grow sunflower again. So yeah, so it's always great to like try things that you tried years ago because you so many things change in your production system that it may actually work better now than it did back then.
Yeah, we're switching up our soil, or we talked to our local supplier and stuff like that to see if we can get this seed in. It's Pro Mix. We used to use Pro Mix BX, and we just found that that held a lot more water
Yeah,
retention and stuff like that. And I think you and I have talked about that before through the Instagram chat. And now we've finally switched to like MP and stuff like that, where it's a little bit less water retention and stuff. And now things are drying out more, so we have to be on it. And it's like, should we hit the gun on automating watering because that's
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. Yeah, there is definitely like a learning curve when you automate watering that, it's less, there's less control in a sense.
Hmm.
But there's like, so there's certain things where the good thing is like with HP, it does work a lot better than BX. So like when I talk to farms that use BX, and they're considering, automating watering as an example, I'm like, you should probably try testing out HP, because it just holds less water. And when you're bottom watering with an automated system, you can't have it be like 30 seconds and then it's done. It's got to go through its kind of cycle, so there's a little less control, but I think it's well worth the time savings, and it also makes it consistent. So like, if for example when you hire people, they may water slightly differently than you, whereas if you just have a
Mm.
program doing it, it's going to be the same. So it kind of eliminates that potential like human error aspect of certain things. Same thing with like the seeding machine that we're creating. It's like it kind of eliminates, for if someone else is doing it, that it'll be the right amount of seed every time. So it just kind of eliminates that human error step along with the efficiency. But I think that that's a big thing I've seen where, if you're sprinkling seed, often when the owner does it, it might be different than when a staff does it. Now, it doesn't mean you can't find staff that can do it, but if you're seeding like hundreds of trays, it can be difficult to like keep on,
Keep consistent. Yeah.
keep the consistency over that many trays. Um, yeah, but I'd love to hear, just getting closer to wrapping up, which is like uh, running the business for a couple of years now. What would you say is like the single most difficult challenge you had to overcome running this business?
Just trying to just like marketing, trying to get more clients, trying to get more like customers and stuff like that. Was the difficult part because I believe I'm that kind of person that can talk, and it takes a lot out of me kind of thing.
Yeah,
So it's like I had to like jump that barrier of like I need to just keep at it and try to market and try to get, be more consistent on just reaching out to the same person because chefs, they're always busy. They forget and whatnot. So just trying to not feel like I'm being annoying kind of thing. And I tell them like, hey, if you want us to stop contacting you, just let us know. No hard feelings and whatnot. But trying to overcome that and not feeling like I'm bothering them, whatnot. But also just trying to, grow as many and trying to please pretty much everybody with varieties because a lot of people demand arugula, and it's like it's not in our growing thing right now, but we will probably grow it for you.
Yeah,
So yeah.
for sure. Yeah, no, like I feel like I can really relate to that because I was very similar where I'm naturally very introverted. Doing sales didn't come naturally to me. And I
Yeah.
think it really slowed down my progress. So I'm glad to see you kind of overcoming that hurdle and recognize the importance of it. Because for the first few years, I just wanted to perfect the product and
Hmm.
use that as a way to sell, which works. It definitely works. But I think the skill set of learning how to sell, how to market, how to form these relationships with your customers, I think is like invaluable for not just for the business, but for anything else you do in the future, or just I find it's like a great life skill to have in general. So it took me a little longer than it did for you, but like you can see by focusing on that you've been able to move to a commercial facility and like expand production. So like you really need, like, sales drives the business, and it seems like
Oh,
you got the message pretty early on to focus on that, which is great. I think there is like people that farm really want to grow food, like that's their passion, not necessarily
right.
sales, is what I've noticed. You kind of have to do both. You got to wear all the hats, the metaphorical hats of running a business, and sales is an important one that can really slow down or speed up the progression that you have in the business. So I'm glad to see that you took the right path with that early on.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
One question I ask everyone, which I love this question. I don't know why, but I just do. If you could go back in time to when you started your farm 2 years ago and meet the younger version of Jacob, what advice would you give him to set him up for success?
Ah, just keep moving forward. Don't get discouraged in a crop when it fails, when it you grew like hundreds of them and then it just fails. Just pinpoint the source and reach out to seed suppliers and just see your environment. Just don't get so frustrated over the little things where there could be a factor that has caused it. Just just redo it and keep on just moving forward.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, like you can very easily lose sleep over kind of the small things, and the more of running a business you kind of do, you realize more and more of things are the small things,
Hmm.
and then it kind of gives you a little bit more perspective on what are really the big things in running a business that are problematic, and what to not lose sleep over versus what to lose sleep over is a
Yeah.
simple way to put that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been great having you on. If listeners want to connect more with you to learn about your farm or yourself, where can they find you online and on social media?
On social media, on IG or Facebook, just Pinky's Micros, and then on our website, pinkiesmicros.com, and just type in Google Pinky's Micros, and we'll pop up with our goat and logo and stuff like that on there.
Awesome. Yeah, and for anyone that wants to kind of see what I would consider a higher quality product, definitely check out their Instagram. You can kind of get a sense of like the quality of the product, and I think that'll help farms kind of get a sense of what I would consider that. And I think it's just helpful to get a visual understanding of what a high quality microgreen is. I think that's something that I struggled with early on, is like, what is a high quality microgreen? And it was just like, I'm just guessing. And it's nice to have so many farms in the community now that you can kind of like bounce ideas off of and stuff. So it's really
Mhm.
cool. If anyone wants to see that, check out their Instagram for sure. But yeah, it's been great to have you on, Jacob. Thanks so much for sharing all your wisdom from the last 2 years. And
I appreciate it, Jonah. Thank you for having me.
thanks for tuning in to the Microgreens Mastery Podcast. To access a wealth of insights, just click the subscribe button, stay notified about each new episode, and enjoy all of this wisdom for free. If you're ready to supercharge your microgreens business, visit microgreensconsulting.com for a gold mine of guides and resources. We've transformed thousands of microgreens businesses, and you're invited to join the success story. Let's stay connected. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Microgreens Consulting for exclusive content and expert tips and wisdom. If you found this episode insightful, please leave us a review, spread the word, and let's share microgreens magic with the world. Until next time, let curiosity fuel your growth, and may happiness be your harvest. Happy growing, everyone.